There will be mornings when the sun forgets to rise inside of you, when your limbs feel like stone and your purpose whispers too softly to hear. You will ache with doubt. Discipline is the gateway to freedom. At first glance, this idea might seem like a contradiction. How could structure, rules, and self-control, often seen as limiting, possibly lead to freedom, which we associate with openness, spontaneity, and choice? But look deeper, and you'll see a quiet truth. The most powerful kind of freedom is not found in doing whatever we feel like. It's found in being able to do what we set out to do, even when we don't feel like it. That kind of freedom is only possible through discipline. Discipline is the muscle behind every promise we make to ourselves. It shows up in the early morning alarm that nobody else hears but us. It shows up in the moments we choose to stay focused when distractions come dressed in every form. Discipline doesn't ask how we feel about the work. It simply reminds us why we started. It keeps the long game in sight when the short-term comforts try to pull us away. It is the quiet, unwavering voice that says, "Stay with it." Without discipline, we become prisoners of impulse. We follow whatever mood shows up at the door. We say we want to grow, but we settle into habits that keep us still. We say we want freedom, but we don't realize we're handing our time, energy, and potential over to whatever feels good in the moment. That's not freedom, that's bondage to inconsistency. That's the slow erosion of dreams under the weight of delay, distraction, and doubt. Now think of someone who has mastered their craft. A dancer who moves with effortless grace. A writer whose words feel like music. An athlete whose body moves like poetry in motion. That ease didn't come from being free to do whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted. It came from years of repetition, of showing up whether they felt like it or not. It came from discipline. And that discipline gave them a deeper freedom, the freedom to create, to perform, to achieve without hesitation, the freedom to trust themselves. This principle touches every area of life. Financial freedom doesn't come from spending freely. It comes from managing money with consistency and wisdom. Emotional freedom doesn't come from reacting to every feeling. It comes from learning to pause, to reflect, to choose our responses. Creative freedom doesn't come from waiting for inspiration. It comes from building the habit of creating even when inspiration is silent. In each case, discipline lays the groundwork for freedom to grow. Discipline teaches us that we are capable of more than we thought. It's not about punishment, it's about power. It's not about restriction, it's about direction. It creates a container for our energy, our effort, and our time. And in that container, something extraordinary happens. We grow. We build strength in our spirit. We become reliable to ourselves. We learn that freedom isn't the absence of commitment. It's the result of it. So when you force yourself to do the hard thing, when you choose the uncomfortable path because it leads somewhere meaningful, when you stay with something long enough to see it bloom, you are practicing freedom, real, grounded, soul-level freedom, the kind that can't be taken from you, the kind that lives inside your choices. Consistency is not about motivation, but commitment. Motivation is the spark. It flares up when inspiration strikes, when a goal excites us, or when the vision feels fresh and new. But that spark cannot sustain a fire. It flickers, it fades, it disappears when we're tired, when progress slows, or when life gets hard. Commitment, however, is the slow-burning flame. It's the choice to keep going regardless of how we feel. It's the decision to honor the goal long after the mood to pursue it has passed. We live in a world that glorifies being inspired. Social media is full of quotes and reels meant to hype us up, to give us that burst of adrenaline that makes us want to chase our goals. But what happens the next day when there's no music playing in the background and no crowd watching? What happens when the sky is gray, the tasks are boring, and the results aren't showing yet? That's where consistency steps in, not fueled by fleeting emotion, but by a promise we made to ourselves. Motivation is emotional, it's reactive, it says I'll do it when I feel like it. But commitment is spiritual, it's steady, it says I'll do it because I said I would. And that difference changes everything. Because the people who reach their goals, who build something real, who grow into their potential, they're not the ones who were always motivated. They're the ones who stayed with it when motivation walked out the door. Consistency requires a deeper kind of strength, the kind that doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It shows up in silence. It's found in the early morning grind, the late night edits, the daily choices that seem small but shape everything. It's brushing your teeth even when you're exhausted. It's opening your notebook when the page feels blank. It's saying no to what's easy and yes to what's right, over and over again. This is why commitment matters more than motivation. Because commitment is about who you want to become, not just how you feel today. It asks you to think long term, to remember that every day you show up, every time you act in alignment with your goals, you are casting a vote for the future you. Even if no one sees it, even if it doesn't feel good, even if progress is slow, especially then, people often think they lack motivation when what they truly lack is clarity on their commitment. When you are deeply committed to something, truly anchored in your why, you don't need constant motivation to move. You have direction. You have a reason that lives deeper than emotion. That commitment becomes your foundation. It keeps you grounded when life is chaotic. It holds you up when your energy is low. It carries you through seasons of uncertainty. There's a kind of quiet power in being someone who keeps showing up. A person who does the work, not for attention, not for praise, but because they are rooted in purpose. That kind of person becomes unstoppable, not because the road is easy, but because their steps are steady. Because their word to themselves is sacred. So when the hype fades, when the crowd goes quiet, when your mind tries to convince you to take the easier way out, remember that you don't need to feel like it to do it. You only need to be committed. Because consistency doesn't wait on mood, it moves with meaning. It is built not on how loudly you start, but on how faithfully you return. Your future is sculpted by what you do daily, not occasionally. It's easy to place our hope in big moments, in the breakthrough, the lucky break, the one day when everything changes. But real change, lasting success, and meaningful growth are not born from occasional effort. They are carved slowly and deliberately through what we choose to do day in and day out, the small habits, the repeated actions, the quiet routines. These are the tools with which we shape our destiny. A single workout won't make you strong. A one-time act of kindness won't build deep character. One great day of focus won't create a masterpiece. But do it again and again and again. That's when the transformation happens, not all at once, but gradually, until the person you become is the result of the consistency you practiced, not the excitement you felt in rare moments. We often wait for motivation to strike or for the timing to be just right. But in doing so, we underestimate the power of the mundane. We overlook how powerful our daily patterns truly are. Every time we choose to read instead of scroll, to speak kindly instead of complain, to write instead of procrastinate, we are laying down a brick. And brick by brick, a life is built, not in sudden bursts, but through steady repetition. What you do occasionally might feel good in the moment. It might even produce quick results, but it won't last. It won't carry you through when life becomes demanding or when motivation dries up. Your daily actions, however, become part of your identity. They create momentum. They become second nature, and eventually they lead you exactly where you are hoping to go, not because you sprinted, but because you stayed the course. There is something sacred about showing up, even in the smallest ways. It teaches you that progress is not always visible, that sometimes the most meaningful work is done in silence, that becoming who you were meant to be is less about giant leaps and more about faithful steps. It is easy to romanticize the destination, but the truth is, the path is paved with repetition. When we look at the lives of people we admire, those who have achieved something great, created beauty, or made a lasting impact, it can be tempting to focus on their moments of glory. But if we look closer, we'll always find discipline, we'll find routines, we'll find the hours they poured in when no one was watching. Because they understood this truth: greatness is a habit. You are always becoming someone. Each day, with every decision, you are shaping that person. Are you sculpting with intention, or are you letting the days slip by with no direction? What you do every day, no matter how small, is either building your dream or pulling you away from it. There is no neutral ground. Your time is your chisel. Your habits are your hands. Your daily choices are shaping the form of your future. So don't wait for the big break. Don't rely on the rare occasion. Look at today. What can you do with it? How can you show up, even if it's just for a few minutes, with full presence and intention? Because that is the work, that is the way. Your future isn't waiting for a special occasion. It's being molded right now by what you choose to do over and over, one day at a time. Resistance is natural, but repetition wins. It shows up quietly, almost predictably, the moment we try to move forward. Resistance comes in many forms: self-doubt, procrastination, distractions, fatigue, fear. It doesn't care how big our dreams are or how much potential we carry. It rises when we begin. It tightens its grip when we get closer to something meaningful. That's its nature. But it is not a signal to stop. It is simply a sign that we are on the edge of growth. And the only way through it is repetition. Repetition is not glamorous. It's not exciting or dramatic. It doesn't make headlines or inspire applause, but it is powerful. It is the force that breaks through resistance slowly and steadily. Every time you return to the task, even when it feels heavy or uncertain, you chip away at the wall that tries to hold you back. Each repetition becomes a vote for progress. Each act of showing up becomes a quiet act of defiance against the part of you that wants to quit. The first time you try something, it's hard. The second time, it's still hard. The 10th time, you may start to understand it. The 100th time, you begin to trust yourself. Repetition isn't about immediate results. It's about building endurance, familiarity, and confidence. It rewires your mind, reshapes your habits, and rebuilds your belief in your ability to follow through. Resistance may never fully go away, but with enough repetition, it loses its strength. It becomes background noise instead of a barrier. Everyone wants to feel inspired. Everyone wants the energy to flow effortlessly. But that's not how most worthwhile things get done. The writer writes not because inspiration visits every morning, but because the practice of writing becomes part of who they are. The athlete trains not because every workout feels amazing, but because repetition builds strength, even when motivation is missing. The student studies, the artist creates, the parent shows up. Not because it's always easy, but because repetition creates results that resistance can't deny. There will always be a reason not to begin, always an excuse to delay. Resistance will whisper that you're too tired, too late, not ready, not good enough. It will try to convince you that one missed day won't matter, that you can catch up later. But repetition is the quiet answer to that noise. It says, I will show up anyway. I will keep going. Even imperfect repetition moves you further than perfect hesitation. Repetition doesn't promise speed, but it guarantees progress. Slowly things shift. Your mindset begins to align with your actions. Your body starts to move in rhythm. Your confidence grows not because everything gets easier, but because you've proven you can keep going when it's hard. That's how you outlast resistance, not by waiting for it to disappear, but by outworking it through consistent return. This is the word most people avoid. They stop when it gets uncomfortable, or they chase the next shiny thing, hoping to feel something new. But those who stay, those who repeat the process, even when it's dull or difficult, they're the ones who break through. They're the ones who grow. They're the ones who reach the other side, not because they never felt resistance, but because they didn't let resistance make their decisions for them. So keep showing up. Keep pressing repeat. Keep walking the path, even if it's slow, even if it's quiet. Because while resistance may be loud in the beginning, it's repetition that writes the final chapter. It's the steady rhythm of return that builds something unshakable. Resistance is natural, but repetition always wins. Even a small step, walked each day, will cross a mighty distance. It may not feel like much at first. One page read, one line written, one healthy choice made. It's easy to overlook the power of small actions because they rarely create instant change. But that's the secret. They're not meant to. Their strength lies in their consistency. One small step, taken again and again, adds up to something far greater than any burst of effort could ever achieve. We live in a world that celebrates speed and dramatic transformation. Before and after stories, overnight success, quick wins. But those are exceptions, not the rule. Real change, the kind that lasts and shapes who we are, comes slowly. It's quiet. It happens in moments that don't seem important until you look back and realize how far you've come. The small step is humble. It doesn't seek attention, but it carries you forward. Every single time you take it. Taking one small step every day teaches you something about yourself. It shows you that progress doesn't demand perfection. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to be at your best every day. You just need to show up. Some days your step might be strong. Other days it may be shaky or unsure. But it still counts. It still moves you. Momentum doesn't come from running full speed. It comes from not stopping. Think of water carving its way through rock. It doesn't break through with force, but with persistence. Drop by drop, it shapes the landscape. That's the power of the daily step. You don't have to make a giant leap today. You don't have to catch up with anyone else's pace. You only have to move forward in the direction of your vision. One honest, intentional step. Sometimes the path looks long. The goal feels far away. That's when it's tempting to wait until you have more time, more energy, more clarity. But waiting doesn't get you closer. Moving does. No matter how small. A small step is still a step. It changes your position. It builds your habit. It deepens your belief that you can keep going. There's a quiet kind of courage in the person who doesn't give up. The one who keeps planting seeds, even if the soil hasn't yet shown a sign of life. That person understands that growth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. It whispers in the decision to try again, in the act of returning, in the choice to trust the process. Small steps create big change because they're sustainable. You can carry them on your hard days. They don't rely on you being perfect, just present. And what starts as a small step becomes a path. What begins as a habit becomes a lifestyle. You look back one day and realize that the distance you once feared is now behind you, not because you raced, but because you remained. So take your step, no matter how small, no matter how invisible it may seem to the world. Let the world rush. You stay steady. Because when you walk with patience and persistence, the distance you cross will be mighty, and the strength you build will be unshakable. A small step may not look like much in the moment, but walked each day, it can take you farther than you ever imagined. Consistency is love in action, not the loud, dramatic kind of love that shouts from rooftops or floods timelines with perfect moments, but the quiet, steady love that shows up when it matters most, especially when no one is watching. It is the kind of love that is not dependent on moods, not swayed by convenience, and not waiting for perfect conditions. It is a love proven in presence, in the repeating, in the returning. To be consistent is to say, I care, not with grand gestures, but with daily devotion. It's the parent who wakes up early every morning to make lunch for a child, even when exhausted. It's the friend who checks in week after week, not because there's always something new to say, but because presence matters. It's the partner who chooses patience over pride in difficult conversations again and again. It's the artist who returns to the page, the canvas, the stage, not for applause, but because they love the craft. These actions may seem small, but they echo louder than any one-time effort ever could. Consistency is not perfection. It allows for mistakes, for bad days, for being human, but it holds a commitment underneath all of it, a deep intention that says, I'm still here. That kind of love is rare. It doesn't always feel exciting, but it builds trust, it builds safety, it builds the kind of connection that doesn't fade when life gets hard. Anyone can love when it's easy, but consistency is the kind of love that stays, endures, and grows stronger over time. There's a sacredness in repeating the things that matter. When you are consistent, you become dependable. You teach others and yourself that your word has weight, that your actions are not just emotional reactions, but rooted in something deeper. This is true in relationships, in work, in the care we give to our health, our goals, and our dreams. When we are consistent with something, we're not just doing it for the result. We're doing it because we've chosen to value it. The world often praises intensity, but intensity without consistency fades. It burns hot and fast and then disappears. Consistency, on the other hand, may burn low, but it burns long. It builds foundations, it builds legacy, and it builds love that lasts. When you show up over and over again, even in small ways, you are practicing a form of devotion that can't be faked. To love someone consistently means choosing them not just when you feel close, but also when you feel distant. It means showing up not only on anniversaries or celebrations, but in the ordinary Tuesdays and the hard Wednesdays. It means making space even when you're tired. It means choosing understanding, choosing kindness, choosing presence, even when it's inconvenient. That is love in its most grounded form. Likewise, to love your purpose consistently is to work when it's not glamorous, to try again when you failed, to keep nurturing your craft even when no one claps. That's how masterpieces are made, not from a burst of brilliance, but from the gentle pressure of daily effort. That's how dreams are kept alive, not through inspiration, but through commitment. Consistency is love that doesn't need to be loud to be felt. It doesn't shout, it doesn't boast. It just keeps showing up. And in that quiet, powerful repetition, something beautiful grows. Trust, connection, transformation. When we choose consistency, we are choosing to love deeply, not just loudly. We are saying, "This matters to me," and proving it not once, but always. In the end, consistency is not just a habit, it is a declaration. It says, "I am devoted." It speaks louder than promises and lasts longer than passion. It is the hand that keeps showing up, the heart that keeps trying, the soul that keeps believing. Whether you're chasing a dream, nurturing a relationship, healing, building, learning, or becoming, know this: it is not the size of your steps, but the rhythm of your return that shapes your future. Let resistance come. Let motivation fade. Let the noise of the world rise and fall. You just keep showing up. Because in every quiet act of return, in every small step walked with love and purpose, you are becoming the person you were meant to be. And that, more than anything, is the true power of consistency.